GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Prince Harry and Elton John are among a group of people suing the publisher of the Daily Mail over what lawyers are describing as gross breaches of privacy. Now, a warning for those watching on television, the following footage contains flashing images. The lawsuit alleges that Associated Newspapers hired private investigators to secretly place listening devices inside people's cars and homes. It also claims that private phone calls were recorded and sensitive medical and financial information obtained. The mother of murdered teenager Stephen Lawrence is also a claimant, along with Elizabeth Hurley and Sadie Frost. Associated Newspapers has refuted the claims, describing them as preposterous. 3-hour blackouts could be introduced across the UK this winter if the country fails to secure enough natural gas. The warning from the National Grid electricity system operator comes as Europe struggles with restricted energy supplies caused by Russia's war with Ukraine. The Liberal Democrats are calling on the government to hold an emergency Cobra meeting to address the issue. However, the Prime Minister says the UK can get through the winter.
We're working very hard on energy security. It's one of the reasons I'm here in Prague today. We have interconnectors with our European partners. We're working on more gas supplies. We're working on building out nuclear energy, building out wind energy, so we do have a secure supply of energy.
UK banks are calling on the Chancellor to extend the government's mortgage guarantee scheme amid surging interest rates. The scheme protects banks against losses when lending to first-time buyers. The average 5-year fixed-rate mortgage is now more than 6%. That's the highest level for more than a decade. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says it's a direct result of Kwasi Kwarteng's mini-budget.
We had a kamikaze mini-budget 2 weeks ago. As a direct consequence, mortgages are going up, and not by a little. You know, hundreds of pounds. £500 is the average per month. Now, there are not many people, not many families that can afford that kind of increase. Sometimes these things happen because of some world event. This is self-inflicted.
And the US President has announced plans to pardon anyone with a federal conviction for simple marijuana possession. Joe Biden says it will help people to get employment, housing and educational opportunities. He's directed the Attorney General to implement his decision. The President is also urging state governors to follow suit. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Time now for those headliners.
Hello, I'm Andrew Doyle, and this is Headliners, where we'll be taking you through Friday's top news stories. Leo Kearse was meant to be here with us tonight, but apparently having a baby is more important. We're your real family, Leo. Instead, we're going to have to make do with Josh Howie, who's going to be speaking truth to power, and Lewis Schaefer doing whatever it is that he does. Let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages first, and we're going to start with Friday's Daily Mail. Blackout deal sparks a storm. That's the headline they've gone with, and that's to do with the households being offered £10 a day to cut electric usage at peak times in a bid to avoid winter blackouts. We're going to be covering that, obviously, in a moment. Friday's Daily Telegraph. UK warned it could face winter blackouts. And that's the same story there. And also Rees-Mogg backs plan for Coronation Bank Holiday. And also protocol too strict. And that is a story we are going to be covering as well. Friday's Independent now. Nursery children killed in Thai massacre. Absolutely horrific story there. And also Britain could face rolling blackouts this winter. More gloomy news regarding the energy crisis. Friday's Guardian now. They lead with rolling power cuts could put lives at risk, charities tell National Grid. And also Daily Mail publisher faces legal challenge, another story that we will be covering. Friday's Financial Times now. Bank of England was on the brink of crisis after market turmoil. And US weighs oil exports ban to counter OPEC cuts as Saudi relations strain. Friday's Express now. Homes face 3-hour winter power cuts. This is the major theme of the front covers tomorrow. And Friday's Metro also has the same, a winter of disconnect. And finally, Friday's Daily Star. New advice to stop blackout Britain. Wash your Grundies at midnight. I have no idea what Grundies are. Maybe we'll work that out during the course of the show. And those were your front pages. And we begin the show with Friday's Sun. And forget the upcoming winter of discontent. It's more like the winter of disconnecting from the national grid. Lewis.
I mean, this story is unbelievable. It's like 1970s. And when I was growing up, we used to see images of the 1970s in Britain, and it just seemed like so much fun. The bleak football matches in the rain, and just everything was black and grey. It was like a mess, and that's what the Sun is saying. Is that
what is the story though, Lewis?
The story is, I'll tell you what the story is that 40% of our fuel comes from France and Belgium and over there. And it may not come. And if it doesn't come, there's not going to be enough electricity.
So we're going to face blackouts effectively during the winter.
We're going to
because of this.
Because of this. And they say that the national grid is going to start paying people not to use electricity. I mean, they're not going to. If people aren't using electricity, it's not going to creating any revenue as it is. And then we're going to be giving them money, which is exactly what happened during the COVID lockdowns.
But they're also going to be asking people to use washing machines and that kind of thing during the night, so that there's less of an energy issue. But there's also, what about this, Josh? This idea that the National Grid is going to have to effectively notify people in advance, and you might get a 3-hour blackout on your energy. I mean, originally the plan, I believe, was that was going to be restricted to businesses. Now it looks like that's going to be homes.
Yeah, that's what they said first. Now they're saying it could also be homes. They're going to be like chunks of the country they're basically going to give this warning to.
Yeah.
They're going to receive a text message the day ahead. But the problem is then that how are those people going to charge their phone to get the other text message, it's OK to now put their electricity on? Like, they haven't thought this through.
They haven't thought through at all.
Yeah. But I also like how yesterday there was like this, we covered a similar story where Liz Truss is like, it's not going to happen. And they're passing the buck. And now the National Grid is basically saying, it's now pretty much going to happen.
So doesn't this suggest, Lewis, that really we've got to get our act together when it comes to domestic energy consumption? We can't be reliant on overseas, clearly. And we should have put measures in place decades ago to avoid this kind of situation.
I think everybody knows that. And I think the leadership class of this country is completely deficient. Because they've run out of... They knew they were running out of the North Sea oil, right? I think they've run out of it. They've stopped fracking. They're not going to make it up.
Well, didn't they have the opportunity to introduce nuclear power at some point? Wasn't there that viral video of Nick Clegg saying we're not going to introduce it because it would only come into force in 2022?
And David Cameron as well.
And here we are. And maybe you should have done that. Maybe people shouldn't be thinking so short term and maybe thinking in the long term. Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a situation we find ourselves in. Also, just in a sort of short term, they've been talking about this in mainland Europe now for quite a few months. They've been covering about shortages. They've already been rationing through the summer for exactly this reason. So now that we get ourselves into October and now in the UK we're going, oh yeah, maybe we should sort this out. It's like, why have we not been on top of this for a couple of months?
Would this matter to you with 5 kids in the family? You know, if this goes out at breakfast...
Well, we all keep each other for warmth. We're just kind of like sardines in one bed. But interestingly, any blackouts would need approval from King Charles.
That's right. Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
I think he would just have to rubber stamp it. I don't think it's necessary.
But why does he need any... Oh, we've got to go and find King Charles. He's got to rubber stamp this. Why is he any involvement in...
I think the monarch always rubber stamps this kind of thing. I don't know.
Rubber stamps blackouts.
Yeah, but why is it pointed out this time? I don't remember it ever pointed out for anything that the Queen... It was never like, but the Queen has to rubber
Exactly. I think they're just pointing it out because he's the new king and they want to show that he's involved.
He's busy.
It won't matter to you, Lewis, these 3-hour blackouts. I mean, you just sit in the dark and rock anyway.
You know what? I live in a Southern Council estate, so I'm used to this kind of thing.
Exactly. Not a problem then. Next up, Friday's Guardian have uncovered a right-wing economic blueprint, apparently. Josh,
yes, right-wing slash-and-burn ideas that could be the blueprint for trust. This is a free market forum that she has links to. I believe she started it with...
This is an offshoot of the Institute of Economic Affairs.
Yeah, so she's... And a lot of the people who are now in the new government have links and support this particular institution.
So this
forum,
it's a think tank.
It's a think tank, essentially.
Some ideas for how...
Well, and some pretty mad ideas. Scrapping free childcare hours. Not all of it is ridiculous, but they're just saying totally abolishing any corporation tax. This is one that is just madness. Dropping teacher training qualifications for graduates. The idea being that you come out with a law degree or some kind of degree, and that makes it you can just go straight into classroom. That's not how it works. You need specific training.
Josh, I'm going to counter that because...
OK, well, you are a former teacher.
Well, I am a former teacher, but I learned on the job, and the training that I did, I found fairly useless, actually. I found actually being in a classroom, learning by your trial and error and mistakes,
I guess
was better.
I'm bringing my own efforts as a homeschooler.
Yes.
Like during lockdown and the idea that me getting a degree would make me a good teacher.
It doesn't, but no one's a good teacher when they start.
I'm sure that's true, but I'm sure you need some kind of training. Here's what do you think about this then? They're talking about now, this is one of their other ideas, are basically moving all teaching online, and they're saying that that's going to give you...
No, that's a terrible idea. Okay. But what I would say is, with my teacher training, I was writing essays about the arrangement of desks and things like that, and this really didn't help, to be honest. Lewis, do you think that some of these ideas might be... I mean, the most controversial one is obviously scrapping free childcare hours. I mean, do you think that's fair enough?
I think that's fair enough. I'm against women working, you know that. And I think children should be at home until they're about 7 years old.
Well, I mean, it does suggest it costs £6 billion a year. I mean, that's quite a lot. And this report is suggesting there isn't much to show for it. I imagine the people that it affects directly would probably disagree with that.
If you want to see a bunch of parents going insane, well, that might... If you want to see mental health bills going up considerably,
yes,
that might offset.
You know what, Josh? It's like a trade-off. The parents are happy because the kids are locked in a box somewhere with no green space. Some child mind is looking after them.
This is your children you're talking about.
It's everybody's children if they go to these things. Do you think children who are being, whatever this is called, whatever they call it, being sent to a creche or
it's childcare. It's childcare.
Yeah. Do you think those children become better citizens?
I think your advice is terrible, Lewis.
Well, the point is that there are 60 MPs who support this. You've got the Prime Minister's Chief Economic Advisor, Matthew Sinclair.
Yep.
There's all these people who are connected to these ideas. And when you look, some of them are OK, but some of them are just bonkers.
I mean, to be fair, this is coming from a think tank. These are just ideas at this point.
These are just ideas. When I read this, I thought this is a complete non-story. It's like somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. Liz Truss is not going to be able to do any of them. She looks like she's dead in the water as it is.
So just a bit of gossip, according to Lewis. On we go now to Friday's Telegraph. And can you really call yourself a community if you can't sit in the same room together, Lewis?
Well, this is an interesting story because I thought we had like the EU and then there's the United Nations, but oh no, Macron wants to start this new thing to bring in all the countries of Europe. I didn't even realize there were 44 countries.
So this is the European political community. This is Macron's brainchild.
I already vote to leave it.
We should have a referendum. We're not even in it.
Inaugural European political community means Brexit.
Yes. OK, well, the problem... The article is specifically about the seating issue because he's invited all of these people. They're either... Some of them are in the EU, some of them are not in the EU, but they won't sit together.
Yeah, well, you've never been to a wedding
I've been to many weddings, and I've
Why has he not been to a wedding?
I've been to weddings.
That's right, he is married.
I've been to weddings with people.
That doesn't
who
count.
hate
His
each other.
kind doesn't.
I understand that.
Yes, exactly,
yes,
and that's what this
strategic.
is. And countries hate each other.
Yeah.
And I think if you take a look at this, it's the what's that? The bar scene in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Where they're not happy being next to each other. And you look at the countries that don't want to be with each other. They're all the typical countries that there's no surprises there.
Well, I mean, but also, surely any international diplomatic situation. I mean, we had this even with the Queen's funeral. There were certain people who were invited, certain ambassadors who couldn't sit together. You're always going to have to consider this. I suppose it's particularly tense at the moment with the row between Turkey and Sweden. They're particularly worried about that because Turkey have accused Sweden.
And Turkey and Greece.
And Turkey and Greece, right. So
and Turkey and Armenia.
Right, exactly. So all of this stuff's going on.
So maybe it's best not
careful.
to. Maybe it's best not to invite Turkey. Because they're just causing trouble.
Well, Erdogan always causes trouble, so
Yeah.
I think maybe you should be in charge of the seating arrangements.
I would say, Erdogan, when you calm down, you can come back.
You know what? That is a pretty good idea. I think we should get Lewis, lock him in a room with anyone who's causing trouble, and then they're just going to agree to whatever. They're like, please let me out.
I'll talk to my enemies, so I don't have to talk.
I wonder about this stuff, though. You know, is the European political community just a vanity project for Macron? You know, he's always seen himself, hadn't he, as the head of the EU, or at least the sort of the big cheese. That's why he was so personally affronted when the UK left. But is this just... I mean, I know this was in response to the Russia-Ukraine war. This is something, you know, the instability of the pandemic. There are various reasons why people ought to get their heads together when it comes to geopolitics.
Yeah.
But Macron, I just think with him...
I'm sure it's a bit of both.
Well, we don't know what it is, do we? We don't know what it is.
Well, we don't know what it is yet, but they're meeting. They've already got a bunch of other meetings coming up. Communication is a good thing. I don't see it as...
I think you're exactly right. You're exactly right, Andrew. You have to remember that the European Union itself was France. It was the goal of France. It was created by France.
Well, I mean, certainly Macron was seen as someone who was very much a driving force.
But this is like years and years ago, whatever, in the 1950s.
Anyway, we're going to move on now to Friday's Times. J.K. Rowling back in the headlines. Not happy with Nicola Sturgeon.
So there was a protest today in Scotland in front of their parliament, and J.K. Rowling tweeted a picture of her wearing a T-shirt that says Nicola Sturgeon, destroyer of women's rights. It's sort of a meme on the... There's another one that says women, adult, human, female. So there it is. Yeah. That's a version of that in the same style, like a dictionary definition. I've got to say, J.K. Rowling has just been Can I say kicking ass? Can I say bottom? She is kicking ass. She has just... I mean, look, hats off to her. Respect what she did a couple of years ago, taking a stand. Yeah. But something like she is in the trenches.
Well, because and she's standing up,
and she's super smart and funny, and
really
just
funny with it,
and really involved in the nitty gritty. It's not like she just puts out some sort of ethereal like initially there was her writing this essay and explaining her position. Now she's one of the players.
We saw the other day. So India Willoughby put out that ridiculous tweet about claiming that criticisms or concerns about mermaids are rooted in anti-trans hatred and someone should take legal action against J.K. Rowling. And J.K. Rowling replied saying, believe me, if you want to crowdfund this, I'll be the first to sign it. Let's go to court. Let's do it.
Well, that's it. J.K. Rowling is replying to loads of people, the bigger players in that movement, but also in the gender ideology movement, but also just random people. She'll just come in and just smack them down.
And this is very important. So this is about the Scottish government's gender self-ID laws, which are probably going to go through anyway. But it was quite reassuring that there was a big protest today. 4 Women Scotland were the principal group behind it. I've had some of them on my show. Really great bunch of people. And, you know, they're standing up for women's rights. Lewis, I know you're not a fan of women's rights, but nevertheless, you can surely admire the gumption of people who are prepared to defend them.
Well, I'm against hypocrisy more than anything. And, you know, it's like I understand what... I did a benefit for J.K. Rowling's single mother.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
You would not be the person I would invite to do that.
Well, do you know what? This is way before I'd lost access to my children.
I see.
So,
before you became bitter.
Yeah, so before I became bitter.
I knew him then. He was definitely bitter.
Was he always bitter?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was bitter for being in this country and not as beloved as I should have been coming from America. Came all this way to be treated this way. But the point is I can understand what you make it seem surprising that she's handling this in a funny, creative way. I mean,
no, it's not that. It's just what do you understand? This is somewhat niche. We're talking about Twitter. It's an online thing. There's the players. There's only a few hundred people who are really involved in the trenches of it.
And she's such a big name.
Yeah,
you know, it's such a sort of.
So when she comes in and just does a smackdown and just points
I don't think she thought it was going to raise this kind of stink.
But I tell you what,
I think she did.
I think it's really good when you have such high-profile people like J.K. Rowling Rowling coming in on this stuff because so many people have ignored this for so long. The media has been complicit. It's been a real disaster. And the Scottish Government is just railroading this stuff through without really listening or thinking about the implications. I mean, this article here talks about how Nicola Sturgeon has said that there's no evidence that changing gender recognition laws would affect women's rights. There's an awful lot of evidence and instances of the principle of gender self-identification causing actual sexual assault.
Already has been doing for years. So it's not even like a hypothetical. There's all this proof that it has impacted on women's rights. That's the mad thing about it.
That's in those circumstances, you need protest. You need someone to say, look, you're not listening. And that's what's happening here. Anyway, we're going to move on now. Friday's Telegraph next, and a council has published a handy new pamphlet for navigating the dystopian hellscape that will soon be upon us.
Well, this is one of those stories. All these stories are exactly the same, which is the death of love. That they don't want us to be
That's not what the story's about. The story's about an inclusive language guide, Lewis. An inclusive language guide.
Where does this come from?
Tell us the story and then you can have your say.
Oh my God! You and the rules with this.
With the actual headlines.
It's like there's a formula you've got to follow.
I know, it's Ofcom. We have a format that we.
That Ofcom insists on it. Okay, I'll tell you. So this is in the Telegraph that there's this thing called the Local Government Association, which I think which has all the local governments.
Yes.
Which is like the councils and things. Yeah. And they came up with a guide which doesn't insist, but suggests that local authorities use positive language and not negative language. Negative language they calling people ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. That's mum and dad is outlawed according to this.
Mum and dad. Expat, which I am. Deprived neighborhoods, which I live in. Second generation, which my kids are. Lifestyle choices.
That's you.
That's you all over. So this really affects you.
Economic migrant.
It does affect me. And you know what? Maybe they're right. Reading these making me cry.
It is so boring, though, isn't it, Josh? I mean, we constantly get these inclusive language guides, really patronising, just endless, interminable documents telling people which words they should and shouldn't say. Isn't it getting really dull now at this point?
Well, it's beyond dull, and it's amazing that it's still continuing. And look, Leo's off having a baby. Congratulations, Leo.
With the other birthing parent.
Forget about that person. That's not the person.
Maybe it's wrong to call it a baby.
If he was here, what he would say is, we're talking about deficiencies in money in the government, and they're still managing to find the money to pay for Laurel Brown, an equity, diversity and inclusion expert, to write this report and send it around.
There's a lot of money in it, but also sometimes it's a little bit serious. I mean, like the Royal Borough of Greenwich sent out an inclusive language guide back in April, which said that people should avoid phrases such as his and her, boy and girl. This went out to schools, and now, just in the last few weeks, they've been sending them out to parents and teachers. That's actually quite sinister. And also in that document, they completely misrepresent the law. They actually say that when the Equality Act refers to sex, they mean gender identity. No, they mean sex. And actually, when you've got local councils misrepresenting the law and trying to force-feed people with these ideas of what words they can and cannot use, I think it's slightly authoritarian, if you don't mind me saying. And this is the local governments. It's a huge, huge problem. So
I totally agree with you. There's one little thing I will say is that they're talking about referring to a person's ethnicity rather than their race. I kind of agree with that because race is a misnomer. It doesn't actually exist. It's a spectrum.
Josh,
but no, I'm not saying like this is a suggestion. I'm just saying that I think that actually that is a positive step.
But we can negotiate those sort of things without these edicts from high.
Oh, no, of course. But I'm just saying I happen to agree with that particular thing. I'm not saying that we have to do a big pamphlet and spend thousands and thousands of pounds to send that around to all the local government authorities.
Well, they do say it's not binding, and I do just wish that more local councils would just stand up and say, no, we're not going to do it. That would probably solve it, wouldn't it? Anyway, that's it. You've made it to the end of part 1. As a reward, in part 2, Lewis will be investigating women's dresses. Josh will be exploring the ethical minefield that is Irish dancing. And I'll no doubt just be sitting here questioning my life choices. See you in a couple of minutes.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Andrew Doyle, welcome back to Headliners, and tonight I'm joined by the hilarious Josh Howie and the sexually confusing Lewis Schaefer.
Oh, boo!
Friday's Independent now, and I thought it wasn't very progressive to comment on female politicians' clothing, Lewis, but apparently The Guardian thinks otherwise.
Oh, you know what? I noticed the clothes, and this is in the Guardian.
Oh, it's the Independent.
Also the Independent.
Yeah.
Okay. That Russell T. Davis, who is a famous writer in this country, I never heard of him, he pointed out that in his TV series from 2019, that Emma Thompson's fictional prime minister wore a strikingly similar dress to the one that Liz Truss wore last night.
Okay.
Or the other night.
Got a picture of it?
Do we have a picture of the dresses? The key point here, I think, is that the dress...
I'll model it.
The dress in
is.
the fictional, the Emma Thompson character, she was a fascist, wasn't she?
She was a fascist, and it says that she wore a similar dress when she was introducing plans for concentration camps in the UK, which a lot of people think that the Tories are in favour of that, and from their behaviour during lockdown.
I'm going to put my neck out and say they are definitely not in favour of that. And this is a really bizarre thing, isn't it, Josh? I mean, the fact that the coincidence that she's wearing the same style of dress is supposed to tell us something about her sinister intentions. What's going on?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I thought, actually, when I first saw that dress, it was more Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Especially with the blue screen in the background, I was expecting sort of dragons to appear or
you know
come
what?
through.
I just think it's quite a nice dress, and it's quite obviously one that's popular. And why are we commenting on female politicians' clothing anyway? It feels a bit...
We're a shallow society. Now we're going to get in trouble for commenting also on it. Commenting on other people commenting.
No, but we're commenting on the news, so we have
but
to
that would be
comment
too nuanced for people.
No. Is that if she wore a blue suit and every woman wore a blue suit, no one would notice it. But they wear different suits, different clothes every time. Of course it's noticeable. And it's red, of course.
Yeah, but do you think people are making a bit much of this? I mean, look, I think maybe Russell T. Davies was sort of joking and sort of saying, oh, you know... But a lot of people have sort of made a lot of it.
They look very simple. They do look a bit simple.
But it's the same dress.
Yeah.
It's a really popular dress that lots of people bought.
And the interesting thing is that his TV show came out in 2019.
Yeah.
And that she had previously worn this exact same dress.
In 2019.
She might have worn it first.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm an investigative reporter.
Chicken and the egg.
Anyway, this is a big story now from Friday's Guardian, and could this become the new Leveson inquiry, Josh?
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Goodness me.
Yeah, well, that's what we need, a couple more years of this. So, a bunch of people, Prince Harry, Doreen Lawrence, are launching legal action against the Daily Mail's publisher, Associated Newspapers, of gross breaches of privacy. Now, they avoided all the big furore, like against the Murdoch's stuff a few years ago. Yes. They managed to keep out of all that news of the world as it was all kicking off. But it seems like now people like Sir Elton John, and I'd highly recommend that you listen to his audiobook. It's fantastic. Liz Hurley, Sadie Frost, They've issued a statement and they're saying that this is just the tip of the iceberg. Some of the allegations: hiring private investigators to secretly place listening devices in people's personal spaces, private homes and cars, commissioning people to listen to those conversations, payment of police officials, impersonation of individuals to obtain medical information.
Yeah.
This is not good stuff. This is
and this is the thing with
quite damning, really.
With the hacking, with the hacking scandal, which happened with the News of the World, wasn't it? You know, you've just got to. Journalists are not above the law. If they're breaking the law, they need to be held to account. And obviously, I can't comment on this particular case, but if people are found to be breaking the law, they must. I mean, they have to be held to account. This is gutter journalism. It's terrible.
Yeah, so to what extent, how much evidence they have. They're also talking about more people will come out as what happened with the News of the World.
Yeah.
So this could be something that's going to go on and on.
Well, do we want the government to be involved?
Well, that's a different thing altogether, but we certainly want newspapers to be held to account for their actions. By the law.
Is your issue that the kind of measures that could be put in place to tackle this kind of criminality could actually end up stifling authentic journalists?
Of course, you're Mr. Free Speech, and I mean, what I found shocking...
Free speech, if they're going in doing it by illegal means.
Yeah, and sometimes they might be doing it illegal means. If they're not, if it is very illegal, then they should be punished.
Very illegal.
What shocked me about this thing was Doreen Lawrence, who was the mother of Stephen Lawrence, who was killed. Her husband had worked in the Daily Mail's publisher's office.
For the Daily, but like as home.
Yes, in his home.
And worked for Paul Dacre, yes.
And worked for him, and credited Paul Dacre for making this a major situation.
So that is why this is actually very surprising, in particular Doreen Lawrence taking action against the Mail, because the Mail, the Lawrence family have previously credited the Mail with bringing the killers to justice, as in pushing for the killers to come to justice.
Yeah, they did that. They did that very strong headline and saying that they're killers and they can sue us.
So this strikes me. I mean, maybe this is a secondary issue, but it's a bit ungrateful on her part.
Well, wait. The interesting thing is when they did it, because what happened was they actually were publishing not particularly nice things, I believe, or supportive things, and actually the publisher didn't realise that he knew the family until the father rang up and said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I didn't know it was you. I'm so sorry." And he's like, "Oh, the kids have been around at your house." And that's when they came out and support. So suddenly, when he had a personal connection...
But we can't speculate about motives and all the rest of it. But, I mean, ultimately, isn't this a question of... I think both of you have got a point, insofar as we must protect press freedom, because that's key to a healthy democracy. But if the press are breaking the law, then they need to be held account for it. It's just that simple, I would have thought.
Unless the law is too prohibitive of searching for truth.
You can't have that in a court of law, say, "Oh, I broke the law because I felt the existing laws are too prohibitive."
Yes, in this country they can say, "Well, you shouldn't
find
go
out if
digging."
Sadie Frost what dress she bought last week or something.
Yeah.
Why is that in the public interest? Anyway, Friday's Mirror now, and if you could have a Venn diagram of two of my favourite topics, Premier League footballers and kneeling, basically it would result in this story, wouldn't it?
Well, this is interesting because it's the Premier League announces that they're going to be kneeling on match day this weekend for the first time since the beginning of the season. I thought they were kneeling all the time, but they'd
stopped because they'd said that the gesture had lost its power now.
Yes,
arthritis as well, I believe.
Oh,
right.
yes, well, yes.
So they said, I mean, it was once the biggest thing ever. It was so important that they kneel, and now basically what the Mirror is pointing out is the Premier League is only going to do it occasionally.
Yes, and they're doing it now because of this No Room for Racism campaign. So they're doing it.
I mean, I think it's incredibly racist that they stop kneeling.
No, you don't.
No, I do, and I think they should be kneeling every week. No, I think they should be kneeling, and not even when there aren't any matches. Like even their training, they should be kneeling, and they should be doing it forever and ever.
Do you think they should be kneeling throughout the match and play from a kneeling position?
Oh, I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah, that would be the least racist.
Look, I'm just saying, if they were genuine anti-racists, that would be the kind of thing.
The irony about kneeling is a sign of subservience, like what you do to the king or the queen of this country.
Yes.
So the fact that these proud men are protesting racism by kneeling doesn't make any sense.
What do you think they should be doing? Jumping up and...
They should be standing tall. You stand tall as a protest.
Well, this is an interesting one because the gesture has now become specifically associated with the Black Lives Matter movement, which isn't just about racism, it's also about dismantling the nuclear family and queering
Marxism,
Marxism, etc. So a lot of people are concerned about those associations. You had the Kick It Out campaign in football, and the fans didn't mind that at all, but they did start booing this gesture because of all the political ramifications as well. So is it really a good idea for footballers to be supporting particular political groups?
And is it right for the football teams to actually be scheduling protests, which is what the actual team is doing? It's not even the players that are involved.
And what do you think about footballers who wear rainbow lanyards and rainbow-coloured shoelaces and that sort of stuff?
I don't think they need to. They're just so good-looking as they are.
I think they should probably do it in Qatar.
That would be bravery. That would be bravery.
Yeah.
If they do that, if they make a protest in Qatar, then I'm like, oh, respect.
Yeah, well, let's see if that happens. I doubt it. Troubling statistics now from Friday's Guardian. Josh, have you got this one?
Yeah, so this is black and minority ethnic people in the UK are twice as likely to be in deep poverty. And these statistics, these are by the Runnymede Trust charity.
We've known this for a while, though.
We do, but to see some of this stuff laid out, minority ethnic people make up about 15% of the population, but 26% of those are in deep poverty. So there's a few things here where minority ethnic people are 2.2 times more likely to be in deep poverty than white people. Bangladeshi people more than 3 times. There's another thing here, how black and ethnic minority families are losing £800 a year on average compared to $450 for white families. So this is stuff that's pretty much laid out in figures. What they don't do in this article in The Guardian is provide any analysis or any reasons why this might be so.
The Commission for Racial and Ethnic Disparities did provide some very good reasons for this. And the Runnymede Trust actually trashed them for it because they believe in this idea of structural systemic racism, which doesn't necessarily tie up to the facts. And it's really interesting because, we've known for a long time that black and ethnic minority people are overrepresented within lower income brackets. And yet there's been a focus on identity politics, group identity. But if you focus on money, if you focus on helping the poorest, then you automatically will end up helping these categories of people as well, these demographics. And that's surely what we should be doing here. So it's just strange to me. That
absolutely. This stuff is laid out in a very economic terms. And thus, like you say, should be dealt with in an economic...
What do you think, Lewis? I mean, surely we should be looking out for the poorest in society, irrespective of their skin colour.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that most of the poorest people, most of those groups are recent immigrants.
Well, there is always that, of course, isn't there? Recent immigrants to the country are far less likely to be in poverty and through successive generations will have had less opportunity to accrue wealth. I mean, that's one of the reasons why you get these. But that's an example of that the Cred report pointed out, and that could explain it. But
I don't know if that's actually true about the recent immigrant thing, because I believe that Nigerian families migrated later than Windrush generation, and their economic outcomes are different. So there are differences.
And those are distinctions that the Cred report also tried to get to the bottom and tried to talk about and got slammed for it, And I think ultimately it comes down to let's focus predominantly on money and class and economic inequality and redressing that. And all of these other issues will get solved, I would have thought.
Right. You can't... I don't think you should give out money just based on...
It's not about giving out money, but it's about finding out where these greatest inequalities lie financially and trying to deal with that part of it.
We've got to move on, Lewis. Sorry. On to Friday's Independent now. And online hate crime. Josh, this is a story that is claiming that it's on the rise.
Yes, so transphobic narratives from politicians are supposedly fueling hate, according to, as their recorded crimes soar. So, 4,355 crimes committed in the up to March 2022.
Yeah.
That's up from 2,799. So that's a large jump. But there's been a nearly 26% increase in all recorded crimes.
Yes.
And of all hate crimes, the transgender hate crimes is like the least of all the other things in terms of religion, ethnicity, and whatever.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, the year after year, we always get these new reports about hate crimes are rising. But the reason they're rising, predominantly, is the way in which they're recorded. We now have a situation, ever since 2014, the College of Policing put these new guidelines in place. The police have been basically trawling for hate crime. They tweet out saying, just report anything to us. they introduced this idea that it's about the perception of the victim. So if you perceive that something is hateful, it gets recorded as a hate crime.
But are they saying here they're not defining what a hate crime is? Because you're including sort of non-hate crimes, right?
No, just hate crime.
Just
hate crime is perceived. It is about the perception of the victim. Even for that can be classified as hate crime, go into the hate crime.
Well, they don't specify here how much or if any of it is violent.
Well, exactly, because that's the other problem, is that somebody saying there are differences between men and women can end up being recorded on the hate crime statistics. And a lot of people phone the notion. And then they start saying, well, this is clearly we live in this horrible transphobic
I do know that there is a perception that trans people are being murdered and being beaten up, but certainly,
which again doesn't match the stats.
Which doesn't match the stats, yeah.
Exactly. It's just very maddening, because if you look at any of the sources that actually record the actual hate crime, right, that isn't dependent on the way in which the police
like a Louis
record
Schaefer
it.
hate crime.
No, like the Crime Survey of England and Wales. It shows that hate crimes are dropping year on, year out. Actual hate crimes. But perceptions of hate crimes are rising.
What is a hate crime? Every crime is filled with hate. There's no crime against someone you love.
No, this is true.
You always bring it. You've met someone recently or something.
It is perception. It's like, did this guy say something to make you...
sometimes it's actually someone getting beaten up.
Yeah, but surely, I mean, my view is that we should abolish the idea of hate crime, because if I'm beaten up, it doesn't matter if they did it because I'm gay or not. It's the fact is that they broke the law by beating me up. I want them prosecuted for that. Yeah. I don't want them prosecuted for what I imagine is going on in their head, because I think that leads to authoritarianism.
OK, but if you've got a bunch of guys driving around North London screaming, we're going to kill, rape all the...
Which they did.
Which they did.
Yeah.
Driving...
That's already illegal.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's just threat. I think that then it is indicative of different phenomena in society that also need to be dealt with.
Yeah, but
I think there is a useful element to them as well.
I don't think this is the way to do it. But anyway, we can agree to disagree. It's a longer conversation. Let's go now to Friday's Telegraph and over to Northern Ireland. Lewis, your specialist subject, right?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Thanks for giving this to me. Is that the Northern Ireland Protocol is a little too strict, says the unpronounceable Irish Deputy Prime Minister. And is he the... No, he's not the... Is he the Prime Minister?
Deputy Prime Minister. It's in the article.
I know, but
you read this, right?
I know, I did read it, and I thought to myself, is he the Prime Minister or is it
It's quite significant, though, isn't it, that someone within the Irish government is conceding that the Northern Irish Protocol is a bit too strict. I mean, that's the point, isn't it? That's quite a development, I would have thought.
Well, it's about having that border between Northern Ireland and between Britain and Ireland, and the DUP want to keep together with Britain and want a stronger border with Ireland, and Ireland wants a very weak border.
So surely, now that with this intervention with the Irish government, maybe we can get to the bottom of this or get us overcome this problem.
Yeah, hopefully, because, of course, we need to sort out what's going on in the Northern Ireland Parliament. But
we don't have one at the moment.
Well, they don't have one. It's not been functioning because DUP is still livid, fairly so, because they were lied to about whether there was going to be a hard border or not.
Well, I mean, it's actually...
Well, I mean, but that's their perception of... Well, I mean, look, the reality of what happened.
The passion with... I mean, I was over there recently. The passion among unionist communities about this is not to be underestimated. They believe that you have an effective border now down the Irish Sea, and that their sovereignty is threatened by this. And that is, they've got a case.
You know what it's like? It's like if you're going out with a girl, and
you have met someone, haven't you?
And she says to you, "Oh, we'll still be in touch. We'll still be friends."
What's her name?
They never call you. Would you mind your own business, Josh? Okay. So at the end of the day, the DUP, the Irish Protestants, feel very slighted because they've basically been dumped by.
Well, they were lied to, essentially. But this is what's interesting.
They weren't that they were lied to.
They were very specifically 100% lied to. But
whether they were lied to.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that this newspaper is saying that it's interesting that the UK could give ground and allow the European Court of Justice to be involved in actually policing the protocol. Now, for me, that doesn't mean Brexit. Brexit means Brexit.
Exactly.
And so to have the European Court of Justice involved is like, that would be disgusting.
Yeah, so you, in a sense, you do understand where the DUP are coming from, where the unionists are coming from.
I don't know. I'm just saying that so I don't get any tweets afterwards from Brexit people. They're bumming me out.
I take the DUP side.
OK. Whoa. Lewis has come down on one side of that. I think it's probably a bit more complicated.
It's going to start marching soon.
Let's Friday's Guardian next. Now, this is really interesting. We were talking the other day about cheating in chess. That grandmaster who was cheating. This is Irish dancing.
Irish dancing,
How do you cheat in Irish dancing?
Well, you sleep with the judges and then they give you better results for your students because then your dance studio or whatever can charge a higher fee for taking
Where has
students.
this happened?
This has happened in Ireland.
Yeah.
So it's like The Godfather. This is what one of the people said. The Irish dancing world is hit by cheating allegations. There's actually a very similar thing happened in the sumo wrestling in Japan where they looked at all the results. But this is like they've got some access to a WhatsApp group. They've had different evidence that has been coming forward. You know, because it's a small group of people who are essentially controlling this whole sort of industry, and it's one of these like small, tiny worlds, and they're saying here it's like an omerta, and
this is like a plot for a film. I mean, this would be an incredible film.
It is, but and any member found to have engaged in this gross misconduct will then be part of the organisation's disciplinary procedures, and you will have to then. The punishment is you have to watch Irish dancing.
OK, well, listen, that's it for part 2. Coming up, we're going to be talking about terrible poetry, intelligent life in the House of Lords, and a bad boyfriend database. Watch out. See you in 2 minutes.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm still Andrew Doyle. He's still Josh Howie. And he is still Lewis Schaefer Plus.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. That's the name you're going by these days.
I'm going by that. There's more to
There's more to
love.
you. We've always known that. Friday's Telegraph, they have this story. Shakespeare's Globe isn't exactly pumping out the calibre of work I would normally associate with it.
No, it's like saying that Shakespeare's Globe rushes to delete derogatory poem on transphobic TERFs. And it's like TERF stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's right there. And basically, little did we know that Shakespeare's Globe, which we thought was putting on Hamlet and Macbeth or whatever those plays are, is doing a play about Joan of Arc as a trans woman.
Yeah,
which
the implication being that because she was powerful, strong, and wore armour,
she was a man. A trans man, exactly.
Or non-binary, I think.
Non-binary, whatever it was. And even that offended me. I mean, women have so many, give them Joan of Arc.
Yeah, give them
Give them the women who got murdered.
Exactly. They deserve that. They haven't stolen. So that's
and this was part of the publicity, wasn't it? So the Globe actually put out this poem, which was full of
proudly put it out on their website.
Misogynistic language. It was really bizarre that they would do this.
The B word and...
Yeah, but what Josh, what is the... I mean, that sounds like they're goading feminists.
Well, of course, but I think it's also indicative of how captured this institution is, that they would put it out and be proud of it. Like, hey, look at us, everybody. Here's a horrible poem about women.
How disgusting women are.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of feminists are concerned about this idea that when you sort of pursue these agendas that say that gender is a sort of innate thing and biological sex doesn't matter, that there's a kind of misogyny underlying the whole thing because it ends up with the women's spaces being broken up and that kind of thing. And if you put out a poem talking about how vile women are, that kind of confirms their view, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And have you seen a clip of the actor, actress, I don't know what to say, that they them giving that sort of talk?
Yeah, the prologue of the play.
Yeah, it's
terrible.
It's vomit-inducing.
It's really
because it is just as on a. I mean, I do a bit of acting. Just on the actor tip, it's just so like I'm an actor and this is my thing, and it's like this. It's so cringeworthy. You've got to check it out.
The writing
it's unbelievable.
It's pretty sick form. Lewis, what do you make of this?
I make of it is that number one is that you mentioned how men are going into this woman's space. That's what the trans whole business is. Yeah. Could be perceived that way. But then again, case has to be made that women are completely overrun men's spaces, including the office and sports. And
yeah, I think the stakes are slightly higher.
Do you feel threatened in the office?
I mean, you're not threatened by the presence of women.
I'm just saying.
Well, you are, Lewis.
I am. I'm just saying that I don't think it's nice either way. I think men and women should have their own spaces.
OK, well, actually, you're weirdly siding with the feminists there for once, Lewis. Anyway, Friday's Mail. And finally, the House of Lords about to have some sentient life within its hallowed chambers. What's this about?
IDA robot artist to make history as the first robot to speak at the House of Lords. This is an historic first. The House of Lords will host its first ever robot speaker next week. That's not including Liz Truss.
Ooh, that was mean.
Thank you.
What a burn! A burn from Josh Howie.
Thank you very much. With her dress that looks like another dress. This AI is saying she's going to give evidence as part of this they, them, robot.
Surely robots are not binary.
Well...
Oh, no, actually, robots are binary.
This is very confusing. Now, when you throw in trans robots into the mix, then it all gets very confusing.
Well, that's the next step.
And she's going to be speaking to the future of the creative industries, art, design, fashion. I suggest that they should not listen to this evidence. I think this robot is going to be very biased.
Yes, I think so as well.
And that they're going to be going on a pro-AI tip.
So I've seen a lot of these AI-generated artworks online, and I hate
our producer's obsessed.
Yeah, my producer's upset. I hate them, and I think art has to have a human soul to it, doesn't it, Lewis? I mean, this idea that we could just outsource all of our creative endeavours to the robotic world, isn't that chilling?
I don't think that's chilling because I think people won't be interested in it. So it's
but they are. That's what worries me.
I don't think they're interested in it. No one's going to buy a painting of the Queen, which is what this woman. I called her a woman.
I don't know about this. My friend Lisa keeps posting these AI generated things.
Could an AI do that? I don't think the camera can see that. That's a picture of Lewis.
It is a beautiful piece of work.
That's what it is.
No, well, actually, on this theme, let's move on to this other story. This is Friday's Mail now, and after centuries of debate, there's a consensus on what is the best painting of all time.
Yeah, well, there was a poll that was done where they asked 2,000 British people, what is the greatest artwork of all time? And the Mona Lisa was overwhelmingly won. And second place was Van Gogh's, as you would say in this country, Gogh, whatever. Sunflowers. And third is the Sistine Chapel.
That's not the Sistine Chapel on the screen, by the way. Yeah, that's Anthony Gormley's Angel.
And what this proves is that the British public know 3 works of art.
So isn't that the case?
Exactly, that's exactly what it is.
It does look like, actually, which are the most famous.
Yeah, which are the ones I can remember.
Right, exactly.
Because then it sort of goes to what we just saw the north.
The Gormley one.
And then number 5 is a Banksy. With the little girl with a balloon. So it's like they really are. It's like Family Fortunes where they're getting to that final one or two.
This is utter nonsense. Because if you've got Da Vinci and you've got Michelangelo and then you've got Banksy and you haven't even got like Titian in between.
Yeah, Bacon or anything.
It's just ridiculous. It is basically people know nothing about art and I'm sick of it.
But they're saying the average Brit visits 5. But this says here only visits 5 art exhibitions over the course of the year. Who is visiting 5 art exhibitions in a year? I mean, you might.
And you should be, Josh. And you should be taking
of course I should be.
Hordes of children.
But I don't believe that people are visiting 5 exhibitions through the... How many are you doing?
I do a lot because I used to have a girlfriend.
All that dating.
She used to drag me to it. But you know what this is? I remember when I was living in America, those happy days.
They used to do the polls. They say, who is the most respected woman in America? It was always the president's wife, whatever, the first lady. It was always somebody that people knew.
Exactly.
So Josh was right.
So this
means nothing.
It doesn't mean that we are a nation of art lovers. No. It means we're a nation of people.
Even though that we genuinely think that we are, according to this stuff, 84% of UK people think that they're.
It just means Leonardo da Vinci has the best press office.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, if you've got Banksy on that list, we're not a nation of art lovers. Anyway, let's move on to Friday's Times now. This marshmallow company has managed to get a sweet deal when it comes to tax.
Yeah, we've had a similar story in the past, but when is a sweet not a sweet? It's when it's a giant marshmallow, because they sell these giant marshmallows. They've been given a bill for the last 4 years of VAT, like nearly £500,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And so they've been, customers been, HM Review and Customers Revenue and customers have taken them to court to get this money. But there's a thing where you don't pay any VAT if you actually cook the product.
And you do cook marshmallows.
Giant marshmallows you cook. So that's what their argument is, and they've won because it also says on the packet, like, cook it and then you can put them in between.
And you flatten it between like biscuits.
They are delicious.
But wait a minute, so this doesn't count as confectionery?
Because you can technically cook it. Even though people can eat, and I buy it for the kids and they just stuff them.
Exactly.
But
you can cook any confectionery if you like.
Well, you could, but they're saying that this, because for whatever reason they won and they don't have to pay $500,000.
You won't eat this anyway because you don't eat sugar, do you?
No, I try not to. And every carbohydrate, once you eat it, once it goes into your mouth, it breaks down into sugars. So in theory, everything that's plant-based is a sweet.
OK, well, we're going to move on to this story from Friday's Telegraph because Lewis is a bit of a dietitian and he's going to be able to talk us through this one.
I'm a nutritionist.
Oh, sorry to...
I think there's a difference. I'm not sure.
OK, well, tell us what the story's about, Lewis.
Well, the story is one of those typical stories in the mainland press, the mainstream press, is in the Telegraph, how to eat dinner at 5 p.m. and not be hungry until breakfast. And you don't need to be hungry at all if you eat the right food. The problem is, basically, this is research done by Harvard University, which, if anybody knows anything about nutrition, knows that they've been totally co-opted by vegans, vegetarians, people like you. These are your people.
Like me.
People like you, extremist people, and when you have a high carb diet, when you eat sugar, you are going to be hungry because your blood sugar levels are going to go.
But what about this idea specifically? I mean, it points to research, Josh, that says if you don't eat late at night, there's good reason why you will lose weight. Seems
absolutely,
right?
because and that's just anecdotally. That's exactly. I was getting home from here, like getting a pizza at 1 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe that's the type of food you're eating, though. If you've got
but I think both combined, like going to sleep with a full stomach.
I haven't looked at the research here, but I am pretty sure that the reason why people get fat when they eat late at night is because they've added one extra meal.
Yeah, of course. No, that makes absolute sense. And then they still eat their breakfast in the morning.
Yeah, when they wake up.
It's not like they skip the breakfast because they're hungry after all these hours of sleep.
Not just that. No, you're not hungry because you're sleeping. You're hungry because you wake up and your blood sugar levels are way down.
OK. All right, well, I haven't looked into this as much as you, Lewis, so I will defer to your expertise. Don't often say that about Lewis Schaefer. Anyway, Friday's Independent now, and a database. I assume you're on this, Lewis.
Oh, is this me? Which one is me?
This is the Loser X.
Oh, the Loser X.
Why did they give you that one?
Well, I don't know why they gave that to me. I am a very bad boyfriend, and many women have complained about me.
And we have not much time, Lewis. What's the story?
The story is that online that they've come up with an ex-boyfriend list. This is in the
Tracy Teigen, formerly.
Can I tell my story? Yes.
Formerly, thank you.
Yeah. And it's like some woman said, we'll put up a website which you can write in. You can write the guy's name, you can write the city and state that he comes from, and then complain about the guy.
Yes.
And the internet has crashed
Can I ask you about
Louis
this,
Schaefer intro.
No, look, Josh, I'm always a bit nervous about these database. This idea that if you've had a bad relationship or something went wrong in the relationship, any vengeful partner could go on these databases and say, look how terrible. This isn't the first time this has happened. There's been websites before dobbing in sort of bad ex-boyfriends and ex-girlfriends, that kind of thing. Can we trust... Because, you know, they've got a reason to get their own back, right?
Yeah, of course. No, they can't trust
a lover.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is quite terrifying.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I've just been with my wife. Hello, darling. So I feel like I'm safe.
Yes, for now.
For now. Yeah. For now, you're safe.
Yeah.
You know, I mean...
Lewis is safe because he probably won't get a girlfriend.
It's women.
Right, on that note, rampantly misogynistic note, we're going to end it there.
J.K. Rowling's going to text you, mate.
Stop it, Josh. Thank you to my guests, Josh Howie and Lewis Schaefer. And tomorrow
Lewis
it is
Schaefer,
Mark
plus.
Dolan, Steve N. Allen, and Nick the Big Dog Dixon. So you won't want to miss that. And we'll see you then. Farewell for now. Bye.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate, and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for big guests, big opinions, and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate,